الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين إله الأولين والآخرين نحمده ونستعينه ونستهديه ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له محبوب رب العالمين وسلم تسليما كثيرا كثيرا أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وعاشروهن بالمعروف فإن كرهتموهن فعسى أن تكرهوا شيئا ويجعل الله فيه خيرا كثيرا وقال تبارك وتعالى ولقد كرمنا بني آدم وقال تبارك وتعالى إن أكرمكم عند الله أتقاكم وقال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم خياركم خياركم لأهلي أو كما قال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم. Honorable ulama kiram, respected friends, elders, brothers, mothers and sisters in Islam. As South Africans, we boast many accolades, and rightfully so. In terms of democracy, perhaps we are leaders and we are examples for the rest of the world. In terms of South Africa, the roads that we have, the facilities that we boast about, it's right on the top of the world and many people take example from us. As Muslims in South Africa, perhaps we have more to boast about. Our masajid are high class and top of the range with the greatest amount of facilities. Let alone the masajid, the ablution facilities that we have, perhaps very few countries have the same. The institutes that we run, the Darul Ulum that we host, the different initiatives that Muslims of South Africa done, we have the greatest amount of accolades. But as South Africans, we have a different and a negative perspective. We are also leaders in the world. We are the rape capital of the world. We boast the most amount of murder victims in our country. The amount of robberies and the amount of deaths by road or otherwise are also just as high. And perhaps there is something we Muslims of South Africa need to be vigilant about, rather we South Africans need to be concerned about. That how many women in their homes, as daughters or as mothers, as wives or otherwise, are being treated in the worst possible manner. And we South Africans are quiet about it, it does not go hand in hand. What is happening to young girls at the little age of 6? What is happening to children in the schools while they are attending them? Even more so the younger ones, is a grave concern for Muslims of South Africa. Perhaps we could say down the road in the area of Diepsloot, what had happened in the last month should raise our hair and make it stand. That how is it being in the same area where Muslims, where rather children are being mutually killed and they are being poisoned. And how is it as South Africans we keep quiet does not gel very well. Perhaps something even more inhumane beyond our understanding. How is it that a child of 6 months, a child of 6 months is being raped, is so despicable that we should not be even discussing such an issue. It's not supposed to be an occurrence once in a lifetime, never mind on a daily basis. I am somewhat bound to ask the question, is it more concerning that a child is being raped at the age of 6, or is it more concerning we're not saying anything about the rape? How we become so insensitive to these things that we say, oh, another child was poisoned, or another woman was abused. Does it not affect us anymore? That as believers we hear a child being hurt and we remain silent or we choose silence over it. My respected friends, wallah, Allah's qasam, I say in the masjid, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam has honored women. I say in the house of Allah, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam has honored children. Allah has made human race and honored race. Says Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Holy Quran, لَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ فِي أَحْسَنِ تَقْوِيمٍ. That if you have to look at everything in their surroundings, perhaps you look at the islands in Maldives, and you look at the warm waters in the Comore Island, and you look at the different forests in Africa, and you look at the beaches in Zanzibar, and everything will take your eye as being beauty. But be rest assured, the most beautiful of everything is a human. Thereafter Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala increases the honor. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَقَدْ كَرَّمْنَا بَنِي آدَمَ. That every human that is born through the cause of mother and father, each one of them, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, they are honored by the fact that they are human beings. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala increases it one step further. إِنَّ أَكْرَمَكُمْ عِنْدَ اللَّهِ أَتْقَاكُمْ. While the human race at large is such that it deserves our honor, that we respect it, those that have Allah in their lives are more honorable. And this is what we have to learn in today's talk. That every person, the fact that they are breathing as humans, deserve to be respected. And those that are believers, their respect is supposed to increase in the sight of every human being because they have Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in their lives. As Muslims, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, as males rather, he had given a principle we should live by. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam one day said, خِيَارُكُمْ خِيَارُكُمْ لِأَهْلِ. That the best amongst you is not he who is making money. The best amongst you is not he who is reading tremendous amount of salah. The best amongst you is not he whose charity is high. But the best amongst you is he who is good to his family. The goodness that we have, the honor in the sight of Allah, that which we share with our families is because solely and only because it means that we are good people. You cannot be good to your family if you are not a good Muslim. As a believer, the dictates of Islam are that you first good to your family, then you are a good believer. You cannot be a good Muslim if you are not good to your wife. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that nobility of any individual means being good to his family. And our people, be rest assured, I am the best of all of you to my wives. Give you an example. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam had 11 spouses. From the 11 spouses that the Nabi of Allah had, each one had the full right to make mention of anything that happens in the home. So whatever transpired in the home of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, all 11 of it, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was such that he had given permission to all his spouses to speak of anything that happened in the home. Each one of us, just take our one wife as an example. Then if we say next week so-and-so's wife is coming to talk about him in the masjid, we rest assured whole week that man will be, Allah, let us not say the truth. Why? Because we all know if our wives were here, what would they speak about? If our wives pick up the phone to her in-laws, to her mother in the evening, we all know what she's speaking about. We all know with one wife how much they talk ill about us. Imagine the Nabi of Allah had 11 wives and not one had a complaint against him. What impeccable character must be to the ones very close to us. It's very easy to be good to a partner because you need his wealth. It's very good to be to a customer because you need his business. But it's very difficult to be good to a wife because in that no one can see what's happening at home. No one can see what is transpiring in the home. It is only between us and Allah that decides the ending. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam never hit a woman. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam never hit a woman. On the contrary, it was Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam's character that showed us what is the status of woman. If a woman is a mother, then the Nabi of Allah said, Jannah lies beneath her feet, on her feet. If a woman is a wife, the Nabi of Allah said she completes half of your iman, respect her for that. If a woman is a daughter, the Nabi of Allah said, if you are bringing your daughter in a way which is conducive to the upbringing of Sharia, be rest assured she will take you into paradise. A woman, she is either the Jannah lies beneath her feet, or she completes half of your faith. On the contrary, a woman is that is because of her you will enter into paradise. More amazingly so, nature has given honor to women. That women by and large, they make up half of society and they give birth to the other half. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given honor to women. In the life of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, there's two women I would like to speak about. One is Fatima bint Asad and one is Ayman radiyallahu ta'ala anhuma. Fatima bint Asad is the mother of Ali radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. Ali radiyallahu anhu was the cousin of Nabi alayhi salam. When the Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam passed away, then when the father of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam passed away, then his mother looked after Amina. When Amina passed away, then the grandfather looked after her. When the grandfather passed away, then the uncle Abu Talib looked after her. Abu Talib's wife was Fatima bint Asad. Fatima bint Asad was such that she used to bring Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in her home. When there was no food, she would remain hungry, but she would feed the Nabi of Allah. When there was nothing to drink, she would give the Nabi of Allah first, thereafter she would. She would also go to say, and she would tell her own children, look at your cousin Muhammad, he's so neat, his character is such, why don't you all take lesson from him? And she would also always look after him. When the Nabi of Allah started propagating, from the first people that accepted, one was Ali radiallahu anhu, one was Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, one was Khadija radiallahu anhu, one was Zayd radiallahu anhu, and from amongst them was Fatima bint Asad, the aunt of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And she had really looked after the Nabi of Allah tremendously. So when the Nabi of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam came to Medina Munawwara, he would always honor her and he would look after her. Until the day came when she had passed on. And the people came and they said, oh Nabi of Allah, your aunt had passed away. So she said, don't do anything, I am coming. So the Nabi of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, being a leader of the entire human race, he comes and he sits down by his aunt. And he says, oh my mother, when no one fed me, then you fed me. Oh my mother, when no one was there to look after me, then you kept your old clothes but you bought for me new clothes. Oh my mother, like how you have looked after me, I ask Allah to look after you. So the Nabi of Allah said, then dig the grave. And after the grave was dug for Fatima bint Asad, the Nabi of Allah goes and he inspects the grave. And he makes sure the entire grave is done very, very neatly. Then he tells Sahaba, now you bring her inside, I wish to bury her. The very person that looked after the Nabi of Allah, when he honored her, this is how he honored her. There was another woman in the life of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam that looked after him. And that was Hazrat Ayman. Her name was Barakah. When the Nabi of Allah was coming from Medina Munawwara back to Makkah Mukarramah at the age of 6, then there were 3 people. Hazrat Amina radiallahu anha, Hazrat Tha'laba radiallahu anha, and the Nabi of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And they come past a place called Abwa. And in the place of Abwa, the mother of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam passes away. And in this place of Abwa, there's only 2 people. The Nabi of Allah and Barakah radiallahu anha. And the Nabi of Allah starts crying. And as the Nabi of Allah starts crying, this lady that is here, she comes and she consoles the Nabi of Allah. And she looks after the Nabi of Allah. What is more fascinating of this Nabi, of this lady? She was from Ethiopia, she was from Africa. And she used to nurse the Nabi of Allah at the age of 6. When there was no one else and nobody else, it was this lady that looked after the Nabi of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And at that critical juncture, when the only thing that the Nabi of Allah had was the shade of his mother, and when Allah chose that to be removed, it was Barakah, known as Ayman radiallahu anha, that looked after this Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And she consoled him, and she looked after him. Many years later in Medina Munawwara, Sahaba are sitting, and as they are sitting, Aisha radiallahu anha is present, and Hazrat Ayman says, Muhammad, I want water. So Aisha said, but this is the Nabi of Allah, do you talk to him like that? He says, Aisha, and I paraphrase in our words, when he was so small, I was looking after him. Is it not time for him to give me a glass of water in return? It was these people that the Nabi of Allah honored. The Nabi of Allah loved children. So much so that when his grandchildren used to come, in the Nabi of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam's time, one day he was reading Salah, and his children were playing in the vicinity of the masjid. So as they were playing, the Nabi of Allah was such that he broadened his sajda. Why? Because his grandchildren can run through him while he is talking to Allah. Now imagine the sajda of the Nabi of Allah. Imagine his communication with Allah. But even in that state, he accommodated the children in society. It is hard to understand that as Muslims, how do we allow children of 6 months to be raped in our country? And yet we are silenced about it. As Muslims, how is it that we abuse our wives? The Nabi of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam came and he shut the door of abuse. As a believer, we have no right, and I emphatically make mention of this, to ever hit or abuse any person in our home. Remember, if Allah has given us physical power over them, be rest assured, Allah is physically more powerful over us. If we are going to be good to them, Allah will be good to us. It is because of them that Allah is looking after us. It is not because of us that they are getting anything in their life. If Allah is giving us rozi, it is because of our family that Allah is looking after us. If Allah is giving us wealth, it is because of our children that Allah is giving us. It does not give us the right as believers to be unkind or unjust anyway to any person in the close precincts of our home. If ever we've hit our wives, Allah, I'm asking you for the sake of Allah, don't ever do it again, and ask Allah to forgive you and be better to her. Being good to her does not mean that she is a good person necessarily. Yes, she might be in the sight of Allah. Being good to her is because we are good in the sight of Allah. Being good to our children is not only we being good to them because it is a responsibility. Being good to them is a sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Being good to those that are beneath us. The same Barakah radiallahu anha, when she was older, then Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam married her to Hazrat Zayd radiallahu anhu. And because of that marriage, a child by the name of Usama was born. When the Nabi of Allah was passing away, Usama was the leader of the army that was leaving Medina Munawwara. We don't know how Allah will judge us, but the least we can do. You know how important it is to be good to your family? Sahaba said, O Nabi of Allah, which is the best form of charity? A rand we spend in the path of Allah, a rand we spend to the masjid, a rand we spend to our family. Which is the best charity of any person? The Nabi of Allah says, the best charity that you will give is the money that you will spend on your families. Being conjuice and being stingy with our family brings no goodness in the sight of Allah. Spending money on our family directly, and really when you sit in some of the marital cases that you go through, people say, Maulana, my husband's got an empire. He drives so many cars. He's got so much money, but when it comes to eat time, he doesn't give me money for my own shopping. How is it that a man can spend R1 million on a masjid, but he can't buy 1,000 rand cloak for his wife? How is it as believers, we have tremendous amount of wealth, which we are always flashing, but the people around us do not share from that wealth. And finally, how is it as believers, we have so much of money that Allah has given us, and we don't assist those people that are in difficulty. In the annals of history, there was a man by the name of Hajjaj bin Yusuf. He was renowned for his tyranny. He was a person who was renowned for the oppression that he used to commit. One day he was told by somebody that, oh Hajjaj, in the Indian Sea, in the Indian Ocean, there is a lady that has called unto you. She has been abused in the ship by a non-Muslim, and she is asking you to retribute for that. She is asking you to restore her honor. He calls his nephew, Muhammad bin Qasim. He says, oh my nephew, there is a lady in the Indian Ocean, couple of 1,000 kilometers away. She's asking that her honor be restored. She is asking that the Muslims turn to her. That Muhammad bin Qasim he goes through the whole subcontinent. He conquers the many countries that have come. Finally, he restores the honor. He says, oh my nephew, time is now to return. And as he is returning, the towns that lay in front of him, they start crying, but why are you not coming to rule over us? We've heard so much about you. We've heard so much about the believers. Why is it that you're not coming to rule over us? When the non-Muslims used to lament, why were the Muslims not coming to rule over them? Perhaps it's high time as Muslims that we take the stance and we don't allow abuse in any home. Perhaps it's time as Muslims we stop abusing our own families. Perhaps it's time when you know your neighbor is hitting his wife, when you know your neighbor is abusing his family, you say, you know what, it's their problem, let them sort it out. That is never what a believer does. The Nabi of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, when he made mention, he says, Al-Haya'u shu'batun min al-Iman, that modesty is part of faith. And in the same hadith, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says that the highest branch of Iman is La ilaha illallah. That the highest branch of Iman is to protest with your mouth, to say that there is only one Allah. Wadnaha, and the lowest form is to remove a difficulty in the pathway of a believer. Perhaps this meaning could take literally, you remove something that is harming somebody else. Perhaps it could be taken metaphorically, when you know there is something that is harming somebody in his life. Could be somebody that is abusing them, could be somebody that is hurting them, it could be somebody that is inconveniencing them. Remove the inconvenience. This only shows that we are still on par of Iman, and we are following the traits of the pious that came before us. Remember friends, it is us as a community, as believers, as men that can stop the abuse that is happening. A child that is being poisoned by their own parents is something we cannot fathom in history. If the people of the past were told that, you know, in the year 2013, children will be poisoned by their parents and uncles will rape nephews, they'll say that is not humans, those are animals. Humans don't do such a thing. Even animals don't do such a thing. Friends, where have we gone? It is time as believers we take a stand for what is true. We understand the responsibility that Allah has given us, and we bring a sane nation. It is what we will do today that our children will judge us tomorrow. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it such that as believers we are able to take forth and we are able to lead the world, to show them what Islam teaches us, and not for them to read what Islam is there. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us tawfiq and understanding. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillah.